Hi, and welcome to another one of my Taking Control series where I'm speaking to experts and people who are here to help and offer support and advice in how you can take control of your fertility and your fertility journey. So today I'm talking to the lovely James Kemsley, who is a male fertility coach and supporting men through trying to get pregnant, obviously their partner's trying to get pregnant, and going through treatment. And he's here today to talk about all things men, how men can cope going through it, because we talked so much about the female side. So welcome, James, and thank you so much for talking to me today.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's very nice to be here.
That's
Even though I'm
okay.
in my own living room, but yeah. No.
It's nice to be together virtually. So do you want to just start off by talking through your own journey that's led you to where you are and what you're doing now, as much as you're comfortable to talk about, please?
Yeah, my journey's an open book. You can find it online or read it, so I can't really be too shy about it, can I? You know, it's the whole point of doing this sort of work, isn't it? You throw yourself out there and hopefully someone takes note and listens, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so where do I start? So so my wife's got severe endometriosis, stage 4. And she's had a lot of complications over the last few years. And in 2016, we were living the high life, as you were. I was living in Ibiza, had a fairly successful business, and we decided to come back to the UK and start a family. And we always knew we was going to be doing IVF because of the endometriosis, but we wasn't too sure what sort of journey we was going to go on, as you don't, because you always think, oh, maybe once, maybe twice, you know, we'll be all right, success.
Yeah.
We're not that. But unfortunately, it's been an up and down road that has taken us, I think it's been 4 years now in total. We started in 2016, the end of 2016. We started straight off with a negative experience with a hospital. I won't name and shame.
Yeah.
But we originally received the NHS funding, which basically got pulled on us after so many months of waiting, where we decided to pay for an operation to speed up the NHS funding because we couldn't wait, you know, for the timeline. And after having the operation, Emma's AMH levels dropped below the guidelines where they pulled the funding on us.
Yeah.
So, which is a negative experience, but we made a formal complaint, went and saw a new IVF doctor, and at that stage they gave us a 3% chance, you know, and basically wasn't the best starting role.
Yeah.
So that was probably May 2000. When was that? May 2018. We had the meetings and what's not. And anyway, July. Always remember July the 6th, 2018. Now this is where it gets a bit sad. So please don't dwell on what I'm about to tell everyone. 2018, July 2018, day we start our first injection. My mum died, and my dad was in hospital with cancer. Literally all on the same day, and it really launched our stress levels from being, you've got to be happy, you've got to move forward with IVF, you've got to think about the now. But
Yeah.
when families in hospital having cancer, and then your mum dies all on the same day, it really started the whole process off from what was a negative with the clinics right into like the worst case scenario. You know, you're trying to deal emotionally about family and grief, but you're also trying to be positive about this IVF experience.
Yeah.
Uh, Unfortunately, that round never worked, which I think we can all understand probably why.
Yeah.
Endometriosis, stress, lifestyle was just all over the place.
Yeah. A lot.
A lot of emotion wrapped up in that, and then we went on straight away to do a frozen round, which yet again never worked. And because we got to that point with the IVF after having such negative experience, we decided to look around where we was going to put our money, where we was going to invest, and we was very lucky to be quite quite able to move around because I'm self-employed. Emma works self-employed. So we decided to pursue Barcelona IVF, which we cannot scream and shout enough about. They are fantastic. They treated Emma fantastically. The care, the attention to how you are, it's just such a positive experience. Of course, you probably have negatives about every clinic, but just the human communication with myself, my wife, I always felt part of that journey. Unfortunately, we done one fresh, one frozen, didn't work. And that's when the doctor decided if we was to pursue this, he'd want Emma's fallopian tubes removed because they were toxic, because of the endometriosis. They was full of infectious fluids. So in 2019, Emma decided to have the operation. I'd never push Emma. It's Emma leading the way, just to clarify. It's Emma's body. I'm not that sort of person to command control. It's entirely up to my wife. I'll support whatever she says. But in July, I think it was March 2019, we went back to Barcelona and Emma saw a gynecologist who removed her fallopian tubes. And yet again, even though she was in a lot of discomfort because of it, the experience was just another level. It was fantastic. We went on to do another round. That didn't go to plan. That was about September time. That was about September 2019. And that didn't take, and I think wasn't the most successful round anyway. So we came back to the UK, thought about it. Now this is going on to the end of last year. And at the end of last year, we had one embryo in the bank from our original first round. So we decided to do a frozen embryo round, where this is where it gets a bit dark again, where how do I say this politely? So we was 4 weeks into doing a long protocol for the endometriosis, and the clinic we was at, this was a week before Christmas. Emma went in to see just to have a scan. I was in the car park. I took the dog because there's a dog walk behind the back, because it's nothing. Once you've done 100 IVF scans, you do become a bit complacent about it. Unfortunately, on that day, Emma gets into the car where I'm waiting, and she goes, "They've just told me I've got chlamydia," which we was shocked, but the blame became my fault, according to the person that passed it on. You've been with your partner a long time, but, so that was the end of that. We decided we couldn't wait for any of their testing. We went privately again, found a clinic in London that tested. It was 100% negative. It was some mix up in their lab. At this point, we had to pull the plug on it. I didn't trust the clinic. They have led us down a garden path anyway. So that was Christmas Eve. So it was Christmas Eve. We met with a new doctor in London, where we transferred the last embryo, but we had to go on the protocol for a lot longer because he was trying to understand the situation with Emma. He was trying to get the lining prep. Fantastic bloke. It was at Lister in Chelsea, which was fantastic. We put a complaint in against the other ones, just to clarify, and got refunds and whatnot and a few extra bits. We got our embryo transferred, and in February, after 6 rounds of IVF, pregnant. So that was that. And, you're a bit worried because of what you're going on, because, there's fair enough me supporting people through IVF, but this is the first time we've ever really had true success. We did have an early miscarriage in 2019, but, it was too early to be one way or another. You couldn't really focus on that, But so we got through to COVID, which everyone loves at the moment. Fantastic. Thank you, government. I'm not going down that conversation. We got to about May 2020, and we went and had one of these harmony tests just to about the Down syndrome, make sure everything was okay. Paid for a private scan in end of April, early May, and the radiographer, what was it, the scanning bloke called, the ultrasound.
Yeah.
He picked up an enlarged bladder on the baby. And so we rushed to Addenbrooke's, well, phoned up Addenbrooke's, sorry, let's drop that bit. We called the hospital and rushed us in. Emma's gone in on her own. And I'm sitting in the car, and after an hour I get a phone call saying we've got to terminate the pregnancy. Emma's on her own, I'm on my own. And then after, this is where it gets dark again. As I say, this IVF journey has been all over the place. We had a lot of, it's been all over the place. It's been an incredibly stressful, emotional time. The whole, anyway, we ended up having to terminate the pregnancy after a second opinion in London, and but we was left on our own to deal with that, which was awful for my wife and equally awful for me. But we just had to get on with it. Emma had to go through the process on her own. I had to sit on the sidelines. There was no help offered from anyone, and there was no directional point unless Emma was dealing with it herself. It was an awful, traumatic experience, and it's really put our IVF protocol, IVF into the dark. Into the dark. And now in July, Emma nearly perished from septicemia because she had a cyst on her ovaries. So not only have we dealt with so many operations, so many roller coasters of up and downs and negative experience, I've almost lost my wife and I've lost a child. You know what I mean? I've had to make one of the toughest decisions in our lives. So going forward, we're not too sure where we're going. But out of every negative, a positive happens. And I realised when I've done this whole IVF, fertility, whatnot journey, there is zero help offered to men. And I'm not talking, 1% anywhere, zero. It's always, would you like to accompany your wife? Yeah. And I just got to the point where I became a personal development coach anyway. But moving forward, I realised there's such a need and want, just through me being a barber by trade, talking to my clients about IVF, about termination, about miscarriage, about infertility among men. It's such an untapped market, and I don't say that from a business point of view. I'm saying that from an emotional point of view. Us blokes don't ever get the time, don't ever get the respect from people, in this process. It's always you're the plus one, and that's led me to where we are today, meeting Sarah. Hello.
Oh, thank you so much for speaking so honestly, and I'm so sorry for everything that you've been through.
Thank you.
As experiences go, it's pretty bad, isn't it? And I know you just said there about very little support. I mean, it sounds like you had very mixed experiences across quite a few different clinics. And would you say even where you had better treatment, the support for men was still very limited or non-existent?
You've got to be very careful how you present this, and I don't want to look like I'm passing blame anywhere. Dealing with clinics in the UK, I've been in a lot of clinics, not just the ones we've dealt with. We've had the interviews and the consultations. Sorry, not interviews. And there still seems to be this real disregard to men, in the process, because at the end of the day, the woman is the carrier. But being a man who wants to try and be the support network, you sort of always get treated like this is the core, the wife, and then the man sort of is the moon orbiting the planet, and you don't really ever get thought of as the whole process. And the lack of support, it's not necessarily not offered, but it's always, there's a pamphlet, would you like to, and there's nothing really enticing a man to come and have a real chat. You know,
Yeah.
and fundamentally, you know, and I say this with all respect, like the man tends to still financially support the wife through the process. And I don't mean that to piss anyone off. I don't. You know, you're not just thinking about finances, you're thinking about how you can be there while you're getting, you know, blamed for a lot of stuff, you know, because we are always in the wrong, let's be honest. Um, you know, because I'm sure a lot of you would probably agree with that, you know, but you know, there's nothing, you know, there's nothing. And if there is something, it's still quite female led.
Yeah.
And I know as a man, you know, I know as a man and a barber and a coach for men, you know, we want just something more comfortable, something less spiritual, holistic, or whatever you want to call it. We want something where it's a group of men or a mate having a formal conversation that brings this together. So there is a lack of support, and I really went on there. I do apologise.
No, don't worry. I was just going to say, what sort of thing would you have liked to have seen in the clinic, and at what points would it be? You know, obviously all the way through, but were there specific points where you really felt like you needed more support, or you'd like clinics to be putting more focus on? I know there's the film The Easy Bit that's been done around the males part of IVF, around kind of their medical inputs, shall we call it, and around how quite often there's a lack of consideration about where men are put to do their part of treatment and how they're spoken to. But what kind of support do you think is needed?
I personally think it's you know, if you take away the whole experience of IVF, and just look at it from a customer to client, you know, like it's customer service, you know, and let's forget about what it is for the now. You know, when you go into any form of clinic, you know, there's no reading material for a man. There's no, you know, there's no art that a man can really, you know, but there's nothing masculine about it. It's all feminine. And just from your initial reaction, you know, walking through a door, it would just be nice to see something that you can identify, like a GQ magazine or a, you know, just something that makes that experience just a little bit less feminine, you know. And even going right the way through to the doctors, there's something I noticed the difference between Spain and the UK, that I'm part of the whole process in Spain.
Right.
You know, I never feel like the eyes of the doctor were always drawn to my wife. You know, they've never once really accommodated me in that conversation, you know. And but you know, I'm not the only one to say that. People, men specifically, that are the issue, you know, they still feel like that, and yet it's their issue, you know. And then when you're going through the whole process, even going into the room and leaving, we call it deposit, you know, it's the politest word I could think of on the spot, you know.
No, I wasn't sure how to word
There's
it.
no real, you know, like I was in a clinic, and you know, this is something I always bring up, and I'm not trying to make people laugh, but it does make you laugh, you know. I was watching a video, you know, and it was an older video, and you know, it's on a whirring old DVD player, and you can hear it cranking. Like, it's 2020. Why isn't there Wi-Fi? Why isn't there a library of material? You know, we're not that prudish anymore. You know, and then I'm going through that video, and that video, you know, there's nothing I want to really look at, but I skip too much. And the next thing you know, it's on a homosexual male porn video. Now, it's funny, you know, it's funny, but one, I'm stressed. Two, I'm thinking about, you know, my wife. She's having treatment. She's having egg collection. It's a surgery. No matter what, it's weird. It's fucking off the scale, you know. And then I'm confronted with what I don't particularly want to see. And then I walk out. I tell the nurse, and the nurse bloody laughs at me. And it's like, you know, that support should be throughout, you know, because if it was the other way around, like, I wouldn't, you wouldn't laugh at someone if they can raised a little concern about the video material.
Yeah, it's a very
You know?
sterile environment, I imagine, and it's a very stressful process. And actually, having some consideration about what things you might like as part of a heterosexual couple, and then also being understanding to you're upset about it afterwards. I think
Yeah,
it's
just
that
let it happen.
understanding, isn't it, of how men feel going through it, that it's, you know, more consideration of your feelings as well, that actually that isn't appropriate really.
It's not, and you know, and it even comes down to like, would you like some help? Well, I would, but I don't want to sit in a room full of couples. You know, like,
Yeah.
you know, it's quite emasculating when a man wants help. You know, I've gone through therapy myself. You know, like, and I've got to say, I'm not ashamed to admit it, but still, in a circumstance of me sitting in a room with other males and females, I'm going to shy away. You
Yeah.
know, and having a male, I don't know, like a male coach like myself, or that's Kemsley.com, by the way. A male coach.
At the end as well, don't worry, I'll
No,
make
I'm
sure
joking,
people can
sorry.
find, no, I'll make sure people can find you.
Just having something a little bit less like, I don't know, like you feel like you're in an Alcoholic Anonymous meeting, or, you know, like that's what it feels like. I'm not saying I've never experienced that, so sorry if I've used that incorrectly, but you know, that's what you automatically think. Oh, it's group therapy. Oh, it's, you know, like, that's not what us men want. You
Yeah,
know, we want support. We want to talk about it, but we don't want to be talking it. How does that make you feel? You know, that conversation isn't something we want. You
yeah.
know, you want more.
It's still very taboo, I think, isn't it? It's still, and it shouldn't be, it's still, there's not enough support for men out there, or enough understanding and allowance for men to be able to talk. And I think, I know certainly in my support group, so we've had meetings and men have come along when they've felt comfortable to talk, they've just opened up. And it's difficult then to stop them talking, which is great. But obviously, if they're sat there next to their partner, they don't want to be saying something that's going to upset their partner or make them more worried, especially if they're going through treatment and they're thinking, I need to be strong. I don't want to be telling them that I'm struggling. So I think then I agree that there needs to be something for men where they can talk openly on their own without fear of upsetting their partner or giving them extra worries. You know, it's,
I completely agree. Like, mine and my wife, one of them as circumstances are, you know, undeniably, I'm 100%. There's nothing wrong with me, you know. And I'm not saying this to be crass. Emma is the issue, you know, and you know, I don't give a shit, you know. It's, you know, I married my wife, you know.
yeah,
I don't look beyond that, you know. But unfortunately, if I want to talk about it, I will feel uncomfortable talking about it in public with my wife.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? And it's, you know, you don't want to do it and make that other partner, like, and I'm sure this works the other way as well with ladies and, you know, their partner. If the partner is the problem, there's nothing wrong with the female. You know, you are going to feel uncomfortable if you do bring up a negative conversation.
yeah.
And you know, no matter what sex you are, the differences between men and women are more open to what men are. So trying to prize that out of them, you know, it's almost like you need to tap it and then get it pouring, and then we can keep it flowing. You know, I
Yeah,
don't really know how that in a positive way. You know,
yeah, and in an environment that feels safe for them as well. And as a couple, I always say to people, you know, don't see it as individual issues, see it as a joint issue. But there needs to be an outlet for you to be able to talk without that other person feeling like they're getting the blame for it and feeling like it's all their fault as well. So as a couple, deal with it together. But I think you need to be able to have those open conversations. Otherwise, you're bottling stuff up, aren't you? And I think it's really important they have that outlet and that they have that chance. And what advice would you give to other men who are going through it in terms of getting that support, but also supporting themselves? You know, what things can they do to support themselves, and also where can they access that support, or how should they access it?
I, you know, you know, as much as we like to say, you've got to reach out and chat. You know, the first point of call is going to start with the person that's going through it. You know, and you can't go through this process on your own. You know, it really is sodding hard. You know, and just having that support network of friends around you does help. But sometimes men being men, they won't understand the emotion, and even though we're all supportive, it does become a bit of a dick swinging contest, and I've been cutting hair for 20 years, and I find people tell me more than they tell their friends.
Yeah.
And there's something about that disconnection to your group of friends. And I think if I was to go back 5 years ago, when we started doing this, I think probably now I'm more attuned to it. That's probably where I'm at. Sorry, trying to say this correctly. I'm probably now more attuned to what I was emotionally than I was then.
Yeah.
And blokes going through IVF and fertility issues need to understand that you're not the only person. You're not the only person that's gone through that, and if you do stress and you do feel angry and you do have fear, and I could name a million different emotions here, it's not a bad thing. But what you need to do is you've got to realize that there is help, there is connection, there are other people. If it's a Facebook group, if it's if it's something where you can reach out to somebody like myself, I don't know how many of me exist, so I can't go all over the nation. I just don't know. I'll be brutally honest. You need to be able to open up, and you need to be able to discuss what drives you to be upset about it, but almost become aware of where you're at, and understand that you're thinking about what might happen in a few months. IVF is the tip of the iceberg. You get pregnant, and that's another fear. And it's and you're going to go through the same fears and the same worries and the same, so you really need to realize that whatever you're thinking, there's 100,000 other men thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
And two, you have to connect, because after all, we're not individuals, are we? We like to think we are, but we're actual tribal people. And you've got to try and find the tribe that you can connect to. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And sometimes that might be friends, and also if you don't feel that your friends or family understand, then there are groups or there are people like yourself that are out there. And sometimes, like you were saying about being a barber and people talking to you more, I think because you're a safe person, you don't have a vested interest in that. You're not going to bring it up when you're down the pub. If you talk to your friends about it, all of a sudden they might come out with it, or you're worried they might see you differently. Then somebody like you is a safe person. And it might be that your friends are great. My husband's friends were great when we were going through it, and I think if you've got that connection, then that's brilliant. But if you don't, it's really important to understand that, and that there are people out there that you can talk to. It doesn't mean that just because you don't feel you can tell people that are close to you that you don't have anyone to speak to. And as we were saying, it's really important to talk to somebody, because you can't just rely on each other as a couple. It's good to have that discussion outside of the couple, isn't it?
When you are discussing things as a couple, you've got to remember, like, your wife's going to be emotionally charged, and there's going to be a lot of hormones. You lot become a bit loco, don't you? And I'm not going to be rude there. I'm just going to get straight
Probably,
to the point.
yeah.
If I've offended people, I don't mean to, but but there is this thing, and I don't know how true this is because I'm not a scientist. But there are studies where men absorb hormones as well. So if the wife is feeling angry from hormone, maybe because you're sleeping in a bed or whatever, you're absorbing it as well. You're also going to rub off on each other, and you are going to create friction. And what happens with friction? It creates fire. So sometimes just stepping away, getting outside the loop of the couple, and talking, if it's partners, or if it's friends, or if it's coaches or therapists, or even if it's a vicar, or whatever you're in, whatever you want, as long as you can have that conversation, it will make you feel not amazingly better, but it just make you feel a little bit less angry about the whole circumstance. Because let's be honest, IVF is full of anger, full of worry, full of
Yeah.
fear. You know?
You lose all control, and it's very hard to cope with that then, isn't it? Another things that I've said when I've written blogs to try and support men, and as we were saying before, it's very difficult being female. I don't always know the best way, and some of the things, you know, finding outlets for it. So it might be things like going to the gym or doing things that you enjoy, you know, finding other outlets like that, or other hobbies. Are there other things that you think men can be doing to kind of cope whilst going through treatment, not necessarily just on the support side, but coping in general?
I think sort of having a bit of a sub focus helps. You know, like when I've gone through, you know, if you refer back to when I started, like when my mum died, for instance, I become, because of the IVF as well, I become so focused on fitness. You know, it become my like life. Like I was running 4 times a week, gym 6 times a week. I was doing yoga and God knows what else, you know. But that gets to a point where it's not enough, you know, and you become addicted to it because you're projecting your fears onto this, you know, and it becomes a bit of a distraction. But unfortunately, you're never going to really, how do I say this? You still, you know, it always comes back to that chat, you know, that little chat, it ignites the fuse. Another chat, a bigger chat, a deeper chat, you know, it's, you know, having a focus will help. Living your life normally will help. You know, and this is something that I can be a bit opinionated about. I find when you're doing IVF specifically, there's a lot of conversations about supplements and this, that, and the other, versus the Spanish way, which is live your life. If you want a glass of wine, have a glass of wine. If you want a cup of coffee, have a cup of coffee. Eating mad diets, becoming vegan for a month, whatever they're telling you to do, buying branded products, it's just making you myopically focus on a process when sometimes, yeah, like IVF takes over your life, your whole world freezes, you're in limbo, but you still need to try and go and see your friends, go out to the gym, play around the golf, go shopping, do whatever you got to do.
Yeah.
Because, you know, sorry to say it, it might not work. You know, it might not work, you know, and you're still going to need a life beyond it might not working, you know, and
Exactly. Yeah.
I know it's a bit of a negative thing to bring up, but you still need a life. You're here once.
Yeah, and it's
Know?
about being happy whilst you're going through it. It can be a long process. You know, you don't want your life to just be so focused on it that every day is hard, every day is miserable, because you're giving up on everything else that you enjoy, because then you're not enjoying your day-to-day life, and you do get totally focused on it. And I agree with all the, you know, there's a lot of things that people might say will help, and I can see that people want to take control of their journey where they can, but it's then if you become so focused on I need to be doing this, I need to be doing that, then is that increasing your stress levels and your focus on IVF and the process so much that it then becomes more of a stress and an issue than if you hadn't been doing any of those things. So yeah, I agree. It's how finding a life, building a life you're happy with in whilst you're trying to get pregnant.
I think keeping away, you know, have you ever heard of the term hypochondriac?
No, I don't think I have.
Right. So it's a bit like hypochondria, right? People Google. Everything's Googled now. You know, you join a forum, like you do this, like you can learn some great things on that. But Googling IVF can actually make your life so much worse than it needs to be, because you're going to focus on that paragraph you read on some website that's written 20 years ago, you know, and you're going to just read headlines and put all this information, this misinformation together.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would say if you can, you know, and this is from Luis Zamora, this doctor in Spain, you know, just get on with things the way they are. You know, put your phone down, get out, get some fresh air, you know, because it's easy to become a cyberchondriac.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the same when you're real. Stop Googling, go see the doctor.
Yeah, and also you don't know what you're reading on these websites if it's other people's experiences. Everybody has really different experiences. Everybody's medical history is different. So reading what somebody's done or being told to do by one person isn't necessarily right for someone else. I think it's really important, isn't it, to be aware of that. And
I
yeah,
find that men. Sorry, please, say.
no, carry
Sorry, I
on.
just interrupted. Sorry, I'm saying I find that with men more so. Men love to read instructions. They don't like to read instructions, but cool. The amount of men's hair I've cut in the past where they know every bit of terminology, but none of the terminology they use makes sense.
Yeah,
And it's the same with IVF. I've been talking with men on the subject for a while. You don't need to know everything the doctor says, because you will never understand it because you haven't trained for 15 years. You have no experience in this field. So stop focusing on that. It's all about, James or Tony or Paul or Sarah or Pauline or Caroline, whatever the names are.
yeah,
It's all about you. Whatever the terminology is, eating this rare apple because it gives your potency a bit more. It's a load of crap.
yeah,
You being happy in your head, being healthy in your body, that's what it's about. That's going to help.
yeah. And I think alongside that as well is about being happy as a couple. And I think sometimes that gets forgotten because the focus gets so much on treatment. I always say to people, make sure you're spending time away from it as a couple. You're spending time doing things you like together, and don't talk about IVF all the time. Don't blame each other, and have the support separate, but also together as a couple. Is there anything that you think from a male point of view in terms of working together as a couple that's helped, or that you suggest to people?
I probably will shock people, but I find the whole process funny. It's the way I cope, and I try and crack a lot of bad jokes, like dad jokes. It's a nervous defense system. It's what I do. But when Emma and I have gone through the whole IVF experience, there will always be a bit of sarcasm, a bit of humour. I don't know if anyone's seen David, what's his name, Ricky Gervais's Afterlife. How serious a subject. It's a widower mourning the death of his wife through cancer. He's an arsehole. He's not very nice. But he starts to see the beauty in everything. And there's humour there. Same with IVF. It is a beautiful thing. It can be a terrible thing. But you still need to laugh. Because you will cry.
Yeah.
You will laugh. And I've always said that even when I go into what I call the wank room, it's a very broad, blunt term, right? I try and find humour in it. Like in one clinic, it's got pictures of ball bags and all. Not, you prostrate and not your nutsack and that. I mean, bags with footballs in it, bags with rugby balls in it. I mean, they put the remote control. The remote control with a sandwich bag. The amount of times I've shown people the picture of a remote control in a sandwich bag. My wife was in a meeting and I've gone to the clinic and I said, I don't want to be known as Billy the Kid, the fastest gun in the West. Just cracking rubbish jokes, sending her pictures of a remote control in a sandwich bag.
Yeah.
It makes the process more livable.
Yeah.
We've got to get through these things, But equally, this is probably, you can have a sex life. You can go out for romantic dinners. You can go for long walks. You can have, your Burger King or your vegan Burger King, whatever you're into. But you still, I don't like Burger King or McDonald's, man, to be honest. You still need to be living. Drop the conversation. Don't talk about what happens if we do get. It's the worst thing. Be in the present. Be in today. Past has happened. The future hasn't. What's the point of focusing on stuff? Otherwise, you're going to get completely and utterly engulfed by it, and your stressors are going to be there. When they should be there.
And that lightheartedness as well. And I'm sure it's kind of you will be able to read your wife of when it's appropriate. Just lightens the situation. And my husband does similar when we went for our embryo transfers, and you have to drink loads of water and you can't go to the loo. And I used to be sat there desperate for the loo, and he'd be like, Grant, I'm just going to get some water. He'd be like pressing the thing and making like noises next to me because he knew it like made me need it more, and he'd be like laughing his head off while I'm going, stop it. I'm like clenching, you know, and I think it just lightens it, doesn't it? And I think sometimes as a couple it's nice to have that and it just not be so serious all the time, because it's hard and it's a long process, and just having moments of like relief.
It's so true. Like it's an ongoing joke, but like, you know, I've got quite a few ongoing jokes. You probably might notice that, but you know, anytime we've planted the embryo, you know, when you see the video and you know, you watch your little embryo going in and the tube, and you know, they find a little position, they put it in. I always like to say, it looks like you. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a stupid joke, but you know, it's a nice joke because it gives you something to think about that's not, oh Christ, we might get pregnant here. You know, it's definitely, you know, because even though you might get pregnant, you've still got a massive battle. You know, so think about that present, have a laugh about it, because the next time it might not be so sensitive. It might have to be a lot darker. It might be a lot more positive. You just don't know. You know,
And
you never will.
It's a shared thing you've got together then, isn't it, as well? It's just that moment you've got together. And I think, anything you can do as a couple to get through it, and remember that you have a life, and you've not always been people who are trying to get pregnant and going through IVF. You were a couple to start with who had interests together and talked about stuff other than getting pregnant and fertility treatments and all the things that go with it, weren't you? So
that is the misfortune of IVF, isn't it? It just takes over. It takes over. And, you know, even, you know, unfortunately, and I've never been able to experience it to the full day of pregnancy, but even in the early days, you know, the Februaries, the March, you know, the fear, you know, because like when my mates have had, you know, having babies, it's just naturally happened. Oh, we got pregnant, and do you know what I mean? With us, because it's been a process and it's been scheduled, you know, oh, we're scheduled for that day. Oh, pardon me, sorry, we're scheduled for this day. You know, it's still a schedule. So trying to understand where you're going with it, you know, you don't get pregnant and go, oh, great, that's it, we've done it. It becomes even harder and it becomes even more stressful. So you've got to find the humour in it. You know, you've got to find something. Don't get me wrong. What happened to us? There's no humour in that. You know, you know, I couldn't say there is. Well, there was one thing that made me laugh about the whole process. The one time you don't want to see a customer, when a doctor's on the phone and your wife is, and they're telling you, oh, unfortunately, your baby's got to be terminated. You know, and a customer's waving at me like that, and I'm screaming at him outside the car with a doctor. Like, I'm going to laugh here because I have no choice. The doctor's on the phone, my wife's on the phone, and I'm screaming out the door, I'm all right, abortion. Do you know what I mean? Like I didn't know what I was doing. Like this bloke, I've spoke to him since, you know, was like dumbfounded. Like, you know, I just didn't know what to do. But, you know, you've got to laugh because, you know, it can be bloody awful. You know, it can be, and it is, and it can be great, you know. And the truth is, none of us know, you know. What advice can you give?
And that's why support's so important, because I think, you know, having people around you that understand that and totally get it and can be there when you're having a really bad day, but also celebrate when you're having a really good day and can pick you back up again. That's why why this is so important. And it's so important to get support for men as much as it is for women, you know, and it's great, you know. So what support is it you're giving to people now? So tell us where we can find you.
Well, yeah, you can find me on my website, jameskemsley.com. It was a very inventive title. So the support I'm offering, the support I'm offering is, as you probably noticed, I'm quite a big mouth, but I am a barber by trade. You know, I'm honestly one of the most caring people about. You know, like, it's just something I always have been like, and I felt a bit lost for the last 5-6 years. I've had multiple barber businesses, and you know, I've been fairly, you know, successful through it. But I felt a bit lost during the death of my mother and doing the IVF, and you know, the experiences that I've had, the negative experiences I've had. You know, I really feel that I can help, and I know I help. You know, so when I talk to my clients, yes, there is an agenda. You know, there is a process, but I won't ever tell that client, I might make them a bit more. I might analyze things a little bit more at the end of it. I make them more aware about what their emotions doing. I make them more accepting of what's going on. You might have heard me say you've got to focus on the present. Now, I know everyone loves to use that now since reading Urquhart Tolle, but it's so key to focus on day-to-day life, and I'll always make them aware of that, and being acceptant, being more aware of what's going on, having a general conversation with someone who's been through the experience, and understanding the difference between what a problem is and what a major difficulty is. IVF, unfortunately, is a difficulty. It's not a problem. It's something that life's thrown at you and you can't do anything about it. You can't. You can only work with a process that your doctor will help you with. So you've got to understand that. You've got to be aware that, I use that awareness term a lot, but, it is what it is. And as much as we hate that, it is what it is. But processing it right, understanding emotion, being a bit of a geezer about it, stop being so formulaic about it. We will get to the end of this and we'll do it together, and you'll have support, you'll have help, and not so much friendly, maybe a bit more help and facilitation of where I can push you to getting a better result, because your mind is the major part of it, unfortunately. It's your biggest enemy, and your only enemy is you. And we've got to make you realise that. I'm probably blabbering a bit here, but we've all gone through this. We've all gone through this, and we've all had this sort of like thoughts where we're at a crossroad and think, shit, but maybe I'm your TomTom, maybe I'm your sat nav, and we will get beyond the crossroads of you feeling terrible, you feeling lost, you feeling, and it's all right to cry, but it's all right to laugh. And that's what I do.
I liked when we spoke before about how you said it's kind of offering help and support for like a mate down the pub, sort of very blokey support. It is, you are there to help and support, and you will help them feel better and feel happier, but also it's in a very kind of blokey way that doesn't feel threatening, that's just like having a chat with your friend, which I think is what a lot of guys want and need.
That's what we that's what we offer. Even though I do, facilitate answers with what I do. Like a lot of the answers people already have, and I just give them a nudge to get them in the right direction. I don't ever bring up terminology that you don't want to hear. I don't, because I'm a bloke. I don't want to hear it. I get it and I use it, but I'm not a theoretical. I'm not an academic. I can't state this enough. I've got intelligence, but I'm not an academic, so I'm not going to try to be Sigmund Freud on you, because I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist. We're just going to think about today, not about the past, and we're going to try and get you to tomorrow and the next day and the next day, But some of my work is in person. I do things in person. COVID has made this harder for me because I'm very full on, but in a good way. If you do want to go to the gym and I can get to you, I will go to the gym with you. If you want to go for a pint, great, I can have a Guinness. If you want to go for a coffee, I love a double espresso. So we can do this in any environment, beyond COVID. And even when I do chats with blokes, if there's more than 2 or 3 of you, I do have a beer and a pizza roll. Don't get me wrong, you can still talk if you haven't got a beer and a pizza. But, let's just make it more of a group of lads playing cards, sitting down the pub, and we can talk about things, It's so much more than just having a theoretical conversation about numbers and statistics and what might happen in the next few days. And it's boring. Let's take the boredom out of it. Let's make it. I'm not saying it's enjoyable, just clarify, but we could do something that suits the client. And there's always a program, but they won't hear about the program because I will not tell them.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
feels
we
very
don't need to
relaxed.
know.
Oh, that's
But of
brilliant.
course, we do get somewhere.
Which is, yeah, the main thing. And I think it's just having that support, isn't it? So they can get in touch with you on your website, which I will share the link for. And you're also on Instagram, so they can follow you on Instagram if they want as well. Is there anything else you want to add?
There'd be a lot of photos of me standing there.
There'll be a lot of what, sorry?
There'd be a lot of vain photos of me standing my dog, to be honest. That's what Instagram is, isn't it? So, I'm not really the most photogenic bloke, so, we try. But, realistically, you can contact me on all the social media outlets, and if we have to talk in person, or Zoom or WhatsApp or Facebook or FaceTime or you name it, I've got it. So, yeah. And if there's anything else I've had, the one thing I will say to everyone, you're not going through this alone. There's a million of us doing it. Life somehow led us down this path, and we've just got to come to terms with it. Let's all chat. Let's get somewhere.
Yeah.
If it's with Sarah, or if it's with me, or if it's with whoever else. There's a lot of us out there.
Yeah.
Not as many as good as Sarah and I, just to clarify.
Thank you. Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much. It is so neat what you're doing, and it will be a massive help to anybody who speaks to you, I know. Just the fact that you're there and speaking out for all the guys is brilliant. So thank you so much for your time. I'll share all the links to contact you for people. And thank you very much for talking to me. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. Bye.